Hi everyone, this is Holly from Hot Humble Pie. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and a big warm hello to my subscribers. I love you guys. Today I am bringing you some RH dupes and high-end decor, and as always, I hope you enjoy the show. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. So this is my inspiration craft I saw on the Restoration Hardware website, and I'm going to use these Dollar Tree soccer balls and baseballs. Now my first step is putting some baking soda in some regular acrylic paint and tapping it on, thinking I could make it thick enough that way, and you can see me looking at it there. I'm thinking, no, that's definitely not going to work. You could still see all of the designs of the balls. So we had to get our big guns. We grabbed our spackling and we decided to cover them with spackling, and that worked brilliantly perfect. So I just took a sponge. You can use any sponge you want, just something to dab it on, and you're basically just covering all of these balls up, tapping it and giving it texture with spackling. You can also use joint compound if you have joint compound, and for those of you that are international, you have another product called multi-purpose filler or polyfilla that is equivalent to our spackling. So this is what you end up with when it's all dry. And I did take my hands when it was partially dry and kind of like squeeze it with gloves on to squish all the little spikes down to make them a little flatter. So I didn't leave that in the video, but I did do that. And now I'm just using a gray and a taupe color that is Country Tan from Apple Barrel Paint, and that is Pewter Gray, I believe, from the Apple Barrel Paint line as well. But you don't have to use Apple Barrel Paint. Any kind of soft brown color and soft gray color will work just fine. And after I tap a mix of those on, I take some more of my white paint and just gently go over those to kind of tone them down and mute them. So as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, I did some in different hues with more gray or more brown, just for some variation. These are basically the twine and moss balls that we love so much in farmhouse decor. This is the modern high-end version. And you know what? The RH one was $95. And let me know what you think, but I think for $2 from the Dollar Tree, this came out excellent. Here's another RH dupe favorite here. I saw these and I thought they were so cool. So I'm taking a CD I actually got at the Dollar Tree. It's an old typing program. I found it with the books one year, just a random find at the Dollar Tree. And I'm painting it with a coat of water-based Kills primer. So you have to do the front and back with this. And this is just a piece of spare wood I have. If you don't have one, you can use the Dollar Tree wood rounds, but I just have a lot of spare wood and I want to use them up. And of course I do everything by eye. I was just making a center dot there, and I'm drilling a hole only about halfway down because I'm going to use the Dollar Tree dowel and some wood glue, and I'm going to go ahead and glue it down in the center. In previous videos, I've spoken about how when you try to imitate wood grain, you usually need at least 3 colors to get a realistic look. I want this to have warm undertones, and even though technically you can't see it when I'm all done painting, it's thought that the human eye can still pick that up, and basically it creates more realism because it gives a dimension that, in other words, you can tell it's not fake. So I always start off with the undertones I want the wood to have, and then I go from there. So the first color I use is that sunset, the golden sunset color again from Apple Barrel Paint. And then I take just a creamy beige color and paint it on there to tone that down just a little bit. And now I'm using white, and I'm just doing some white streaks. So this is a process, and see how I dipped the brush in water and I left the water on the brush? That is the magic secret to how I got this look. You're basically going to do a very watercolor type swimming pool on there of colors that you like. And I'm looking at the picture and trying to copy some of the wood grain that I see on those discs. And you'll see what I do here. I'm going to take a blow dryer and I will start to blow dry these because I have like a little mini puddle on there, but I can't put the blow dryer on high. Not just yet, because I'll blow the paint right off and I'll ruin it. It's on low, and I'm going to kind of move it back and forth without disturbing the paint. In other words, you're controlling how you want the paint to go. So sometimes on YouTube you'll see these artists do it with a big bowl. They'll kind of tilt the bowl different ways and the paint's flying all over the place. I'm basically doing the same thing with the hair dryer, and then when it finally gets dry enough where it won't fly off, I turn it on high. It's on high right now to dry all of it, so that it's bone dry, and then we do the process again. And you just keep doing this process until you get something that you're happy with. So this is what I start with, and you'll kind of see, I also do the back, and I show you how I did the back as well to give you some more ideas. But I love the way this came out. I think the blow drying method worked really, really well. And this is where I stop. I'm really happy with that look for the next step we're going to take. And there is no right or wrong with this. You just kind of concentrate the little puddles of color where you want them. Now on the back I did the same thing, but I decided to do the black, the color black sideways. And you get this look, which is actually another look on one of those discs. So it depends which one you like better. I'm going to leave that as the back side because in my mind, I'd already made up my mind that this was the front and this was the back. So there's no going back, no pun intended. Now the wood in the photo from RH has these little grooves and nicks that wood has. So I'm trying to, imitate those or duplicate those now by using just a very thin flat brush and tapping on some burnt umber. And the colors I used in this were the nutmeg brown, pavement, country tan, the golden sunset, and then just a white paint. And I think I may have even snuck some territorial beige in there, but again, it's all by eye. It's all what you like. Just pull up some of your favorite colors. And the real one here, the originals from the RH has those little triangles on. So I'm just trying to copy those so we get a look that is the same. And I did it with pencil first, and then I'm going over it with permanent marker. And the last step is just to glue this on. Now I did take that wood piece outside and spray paint it there. I didn't leave that part in because it's kind of self-explanatory, but I spray painted it black. And now I'm gluing it on the back with some hot glue, and I'm going to use some of those clippers later to clip away any excess glue over the sides. I just wanted to make sure I, get it to stick. And lastly, and most importantly, I think, was making this shiny. So I took it outside. I had this spray paint on hand. It's a gloss. I put 3 coats on. It came up beautiful, but better yet, if you guys have an epoxy, like a resin, and you pour it on there, that would look awesome. I just didn't have any on hand, but it would be identical. But I think this came up so, so beautiful. So these are my inspiration pieces. I liked the shape of this bowl, and I came across this just as colors, and look at the price. It's from Sweden. It's a Swedish bowl. I guess it's some kind of vintage rare find. And I saw this at the Dollar Tree when I was shopping, and I thought, you know what? We can take this bowl and make this into a really neat high-end bowl using some of those inspiration piece ideas. So the first thing I'm going to do is take it outside and spray it with some primer because we want our paint to stick. And next I'm going to take the colors Golden Sunset, Nutmeg, and Territorial Beige. They are all apple barrel paints. And I'm going to add some baking soda to each one of those colors to make it nice and grainy, because what I want to go for my piece is I want to make it look more like it's pottery or made out of clay. And I liked the colors of the yellow and browns because it just kind of reminds me of when the sun meets the earth. It was just something very natural then, and I wanted it to be kind of primitive, like the natural colors and natural dyes that you find that used to be used, you know, before we had synthetic colors, I guess. So I don't know if you noticed that when I put the same amount of baking soda in the yellow, it balled up. I had to add a little water, which is just fine. You can always add water to your paints, chalk paint, paint with baking soda, anything you want. Any kind of paint that you make, you can always add a little bit of water in to thin it out. So don't worry, just be careful how much you add. But they must have had to use a different pigment to get the yellow because it reacted completely different to the baking soda. So if you do this craft, just be prepared to either add a little less baking soda into the yellow color or add some water. So I'm going to start off just with painting stripes on this bowl, and it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the more imperfect the better. At least that's the look I'm going for. And you can even do a little color blending and a little overlapping if you want. And I do end up having to do 2 coats of all these colors. So I'm sure you've noticed by now that I added some white to the Territorial Beige. It got lighter. I just thought when I dried it, it looked too similar, and I definitely wanted contrast on this bowl like the inspiration piece. But anyway, this is it, and I think it came up so pretty. And here I'm just showing you a sneak peek here. I painted the bottom the nutmeg brown as well, and you can see all the designs. Now, before we move on, I took some tennis balls, took them and put them on some skewers, and I took this Mirror Effect spray paint, took it outside and spray painted these balls, and you're going to see what I end up doing with them with this decor piece coming up in the final reveal. But if you don't want holes, of course, you'll have to spray the ball half at a time and let it dry, but my daughter's not worried about it. I asked her, she's just going to put it the side down where you can't see the hole, but it came up really pretty. So this is from the Crafter's Square at the Dollar Tree. It's meant to hold paintbrushes and colored pencils. And I'm just using this piece from it because I thought that definitely looks very modern and very, you know, from what I've been seeing on the sites like RH and Anthropology, you see these kind of designs and shapes coming up now and again with the decor in disc, in pictures. So I take the little wooden cubes from the Dollar Tree and I glue them with super glue underneath just where those little squares are. And I'm not worried about the little design there because I'm going to be spray painting this black. And what I do to get it so that, you know, I can get the bottom and top and all the little grooves is I just take an empty paper towel holder and cram it in the center, and that's perfect. That way I can spray paint underneath, on top, and all over to make sure we cover this. This is the spray paint I used, and this is what it ends up looking like. So now I'm going to use a Dollar Tree vase, and I'm going to take some of the bamboo I collected at my beach and some of the stones I collected at my beach and make a decorative piece for this riser. Now you could put a candle on top, you can put a little plant, you can put a bowl, whatever you want. I just thought this kind of tied in with the RH look, because when you're on the RH site, you see a ton of stoneware, rocks, and bamboo wood. Really, that's pretty much the majority of what I saw when you read what things are made of, just a lot of wood, but those particularly kind of stood out. So I'm trying to stay in that theme. And of course, if you have the wood pieces from the Dollar Tree or you have access to the rocks, my Dollar Tree doesn't carry those things. They don't carry the wood at all, and the rocks hardly ever, but I make this and I think it's a perfect piece for the top of this modern riser. So I saw these on the RH site. Speaking of bamboo, they're $275, and I'm going to see if I can dupe this look. Now, I start off with those little pill lids from the Dollar Tree and these two red containers from the Dollar Tree and some hair bands from the Dollar Tree. Now, if you don't want to use hair bands because they do have that little metal piece in the back there, you can just use some brand name, really good quality rubber bands, but my daughter is going to have this in a bookshelf and that part will be facing backwards, so she's not worried about it. So I start off with hot gluing down the lid so that it doesn't come off, and then you're going to take those hair bands and create the grooves. Now, another way you can make this craft, which I could have done, was with cans. I don't always like using tuna cans because it's really hard to get the smell out, but if you have like a chicken breast band or chicken breast can, the same size and shape as a tuna can or any can in that shape, you could have piled those on top of each other and glued them, and I think that would have also worked for this craft, but I didn't have enough cans. I think you would need about 15 if you wanted to make all three of those vases, but I think that would work for this craft definitely. But this is just another version of it that I think, is really fun, and it came out really cute. And as you saw, I choose to use super glue just to secure those bands in place because I don't want the lumpy hot glue. If you use hot glue, you can. I mean, I used it in the back where you're not going to see it, and any parts that were kind of bulging out, I just took some cuticle clippers and cut off the edges so you can't see it. So you can use that if you don't have the super glue, but you're going to have some kind of tool to trim it so that you can't see it. And then I'm using a combination of the super glue and hot glue just to glue that down. So that's the top little lid there. And I do 2 bands at the top and 2 at the bottom. And any glue that is hanging out there, just take a little craft stick and wipe it away so you don't see any, big chunks of glue. Took it outside, gave it a coat of the white spray paint that's mixed with primer, and that's what we end up with. And now I'm going to use the color Pewter Gray from Apple Barrel, and you can use any light gray for this, but I'm just going to try and make this now look like ceramic or pottery or just something more like that photo there, because that's very on trend, and that's what we're going for. So I'm taking a sponge and I'm kind of just smearing it so that it's really, really soft and subtle and just has different little, I guess, texture to kind of make it look more like wood. I go and I take the darker color Pavement by Apple Barrel Paint to make, the little bands darker. Start off doing a sponge, bad idea. I couldn't get it just to stay on the band. Then I take a baby wipe and I apply it that way. That works good, but you know me, I'm going to resort to my fingers. In the end, I went, oh, forget it. So I just ended up using my fingers. I just have more control that way. So I darken all the bands up and I just do it. You're kind of almost like dry brushing the bands. You're not doing a really dark color. In fact, as you can see, I had to take white and go back over them because I didn't want them too dark. But, it is what it is. Just, this is definitely a let your creativity come out craft. It's all by eye, how you like it, if you want it darker or lighter. but it's just creating a very on-trend look right now that has those seams and those grooves. That's just very, very, very on trend. And lastly, to get an even circle at the top, because I didn't want to put a rubber band or a band up there, I just use pencil and I go around in a circle about 3 times, and you can see me leaning the pencil on the edge there so that I get a nice even circle all the way around. And now I'm adding some shadow with the lighter pewter gray there with the paintbrush so that the lid looks like it's screwed on. And lastly, the original piece has all these little speckles, really, really fine speckles. So I'm going to use an old school method here. I'm going to use a toothbrush, and we're going to take some of the pavement from apple barrel paint, put it on the toothbrush, and the way you get this to speckle is you really got to fan that brush. You'll see me do it. I forgot to mention the shorter container is actually upside down as well. Now you can add wood little rounds to the bottom of this if you want to. My daughter didn't really want that. She liked it the way it was, but look how good that works, you guys. And that's pretty much it. You get nice soft speckles. Here's my inspiration piece, and I will show it again in a minute here. And you're going to need a soccer ball from the Dollar Tree or anywhere you can find that, one of these fish bowl vases, some rose petals. I got these during Valentine's Day, but you can also find them in wedding sections, some wooden dowels from the Dollar Tree, and again, there's my inspiration piece. So I took that soccer ball outside and I spray painted it with Rust-Oleum black spray paint that was mixed with primer. I always buy my spray paint mixed with primer. And I'm just going to start gluing these rose petals on this ball, going downward in a cascading manner in lines to the best of my ability. I also figured out that it's better to kind of start from the top and then work your way down. You'll see me do it here in a minute. So right here, I'm starting at the top and I'm kind of squishing them up. I don't know if you can see that because I'm trying to create a little point at the top, just a subtle point. I don't want it to be flat, but you kind of tuck your little petals up and let them push against each other on the sides, and that creates a really cute, like almost teardrop effect on the top. It's really cute. And that's it. Then I'm just going down from the top and I'm going to cover this entire ball. Now the Dollar Tree soccer ball is made of foam, so I just push the dowel right up the center. It's super easy. It doesn't even need to be pointed. It just punctures and goes right in. And I want my petals at the bottom to lay flatter and work their way up and then go into that little teardrop shape that you can see right there. So I'm just gluing the bottom down. It was like the inspirational picture. The bottom was flat. That was an actual artichoke. And you know, you can make an artichoke if you want, but today I'm actually crafting for my my daughter's neighbors, and they're newlyweds and got hit kind of hard with the economy, just bought a condo, they have no furniture, and their look is very modern, so I'm trying to help them out with some really pretty decor. So you saw me burning the edges there. That was to seal them because there are little frayed edges on those petals. They're cheap, and it was polyester, so it just melts right away. And of course I took that bowl outside, I spray painted it white with the spray paint that I showed you. It's the Rust-Oleum again mixed with primer, and I'm just taking a little bit of my antiquing wax and a blush brush. Yes, that's a blush brush, originally from 5 and Under, and I'm swirling it this time. Now normally with the rustic decor I don't go for this look, but for modern decor I want this to look more like a polished wood, and the swirly designs, as you can see, come up really, really beautiful and modern looking, and they're going to be a perfect base for this piece. While that was drying, I took this out and sprayed it with 3 coats of this hammered brass spray paint. It looks so real in real life, you guys. Now, I did say 3 coats. It was hard to get all the petals, and you drench it. But once you get them all, it looks fantastic. And now I'm just painting the dowel black. I'm using a little bit of the Dollar Tree foam, cutting it in half so it fits in that bowl, and I'm using fragments of their pool noodle to tuck around the side so it doesn't wiggle. And I'm just going to push that puppy on down into the foam, and then I'm going to use some black polyester scrap material to cover the foam because this is a modern home. Their colors are black and white with some browns and creams, but very, very, very beautiful, and I think it imitates the same energy as the original inspiration piece, and I love this. So when I went hunting around online to kind of take a look at what the modern look was doing, I'm seeing this box thing. Everything's on top of like a wooden box, even animals. So I had this Dollar Tree wooden box and this vase from the 99-cent only store, but they sell tons of these vases at the Dollar Tree. They're usually in bright pinks. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. They're in the floral section, and it can be easily recreated with one of those. And I just glued it on with hot glue. Hot glue was more than good enough. Took it outside, gave it a coat of the primer paint mix. This is what we end up with. And then I'm going to use my water-based stain. That's down below in my description box. All of my supplies, I try to put all of my supplies down below in the description box so that in case you guys want to go ahead and buy them, you can. Now, I like the water-based stain because 1, it's odorless, and 2, it gives it a little bit of a different look than the wax does. The wax, if I had to compare it side by side, the antique wax gives it a really fine wood grain that's delicate, and this one gives like chunkier lines and a more defined wood grain. So that was the look I wanted to go for with this one. You know, there's more dimension. You can kind of see it there. And of course, I go down about 2.5 inches on the inside, and this is what we end up with. And it's a simple, beautiful vase that can be used all year round. So here are some of my inspiration pieces. They're all over the place. I've even seen this on the mantle of some of my favorite creators. I've been looking for them like at thrift stores and just thought, you know what, I'm going to make some of my own. So I'm starting off with the Dollar Tree plastic little shot. They're right there. They're like little, I don't know what they're called. They're like little dessert cups. And these are little wavy plastic hors d'oeuvre holders. You can find all of this in the plastic section at the Dollar Tree. Some of their dowels, and I did not end up using the towering blocks, so just ignore what you saw there. And you start off with measuring and cutting however high you want these to be, so that, you know, I wanted mine to be cascading like the pictures you saw, but you can make them all the same height if you want. You can make 2 tall, 1 short. It's totally up to you, personal preference. Now that's a wine cork. You're going to need something like that that you can put at the bottom. I didn't want to use my hot glue directly on the plastic because I was afraid the plastic would melt. Normally hot glue, mine's a high temperature glue gun. It's actually both. It's a low temperature and a high temperature, but I use it mostly on high temperature. So I also wanted my cup to kind of be a little bit more durable and stay on there a little stronger. So I take the glue gun on low heat when it's just starting to heat up and the glue is just melting, and I glue those corks down on top of the plastic, or I'm sorry, on the bottom of the plastic cup so that it won't melt. You can see what I'm doing right here. And that way I'm going to be able to kind of push the dowels kind of inside them a little bit, and it'll just be a little more sturdy. It was all for weight and sturdiness. So there I traced the dowel with a permanent thin little marker, and this is how I go about making the platform for these. I took my glue gun on high and held it there till it melted. And the trick is you want the hole to be just big enough for the dowel to slip through with some counter force. So you don't want a huge hole or your dowel will be wiggling all over the place. You want to, I'm going again at it here, doing it again because it wasn't quite big enough. I keep putting the dowel there and I'm moving really quick because the plastic is still kind of liquidy and it's flexible like hot glue. And what you want is you want that plastic to harden up around the dowel and hold it super, super tight. So that's the trick. I had to do it twice on the smallest one because I got the hole too big by accident. So don't beat yourself up if you do it too big. But go very slow, keep checking the dowel, and right when you get it where it goes through, leave it there and hold it till the plastic hardens around that. And then now I'm just taking and sticking the top part on with a little bit of hot glue, and because it's cork and it's wood to wood, it's going to do just fine. I did need that permanent hold. Unfortunately, you can go back with some wood glue if you want to make it a little better. And here I'm just showing you where I drilled a hole inside the cork because you didn't get to see that. So I thought, oh, I left that part out. But this is what we end up with. And then I took it outside, sprayed it with this flat, it's a very matte spray paint primer and black paint again. After the paint dried, I brought it in and turned it upside down because now we have the cup that can be used as a base. And I glued these 4 gems. They're also from the Dollar Tree. You can find them where the rocks and seashells are. But I glued them in all 4 corners so that the base was nice and heavy and it would stand nice and straight without blowing over. But this is how my project came out. For this project, you're going to need some scrap wood or a Dollar Tree sign, 3 of the Dollar Tree butterflies, and then they have a little clip on the bottom of them, so I just tore that off. It comes off really, really easy because they're foam. And I didn't show it, I forgot to show it, but I covered the foam in Mod Podge because if you don't, when you spray paint it, that will dissolve it because spray paint has solvents in it. I took it outside, I spray painted it with that Gold Rush, I think it's called. That's the name of the gold I have, and it's like an antique gold. And then I'm just taking a permanent marker now and bringing up some more dimension and character for these butterflies. Again, this was something I saw online. I thought it was really, really pretty, an inspiration piece that I thought would be perfect for these little butterflies, but they didn't have enough iridescence. I wanted a little bit more iridescence so that when a lamp hit them and they were hanging on the wall, they would have that sparkle. So I added some pearlescent silver acrylic paint, and I'm just kind of adding it on the edges, in the center, a little bit on the body, just making these little guys come alive. Then I took some Dollar Tree black poster board because I really felt the black would, well, I saw it online. They had a black background and it really made the gold pop and it showed definition, and it goes with their decor theme really, really well. and I traced it. I'm just cutting it out, and believe it or not, I did a super thin strip of hot glue. With poster board, you can get away with it. It won't be lumpy as long as it's super thread thin. And then I glued these little butterflies down just on the tip of their wings and a little bit on their body, but I wanted them to stay kind of 3D looking, if that makes sense. I didn't want them flat, but I think this came up so elegant. For this DIY, you're going to need some of these Ninja Toy little lasers, I think. I'm not sure exactly what those are. Some of the box signs. I got mine during the autumn season, but they sell those all year round. And I just start off by putting a spray of water on top there to get the paper off. A lot of you came on and gave me tips. That's a spray of water mixed with vinegar. It worked great. And then one of these little pieces has the little screw top, and I'm showing you how simple it is to get that off. I just go back and forth really gently and keep turning it. You only have to go, I think, 3 strokes on each side, and it just boom comes off, and that's what you end up with. And now I'm removing the label, and there was a little paper left behind, but it was totally flat and you can't see it, and whatever was left added character because I'm going to end up making this wood grain, so it worked out great. Then I'm just using my hot glue gun to attach this, and hot glue really worked well. Like, I was carrying this around by the little laser things around the house and being kind of rough with it, and it isn't coming apart. So I don't know if the plastic kind of melted too or what happened, but you don't need any other kind of glue, so I'm just letting you know. Now here I did have to work kind of fast because you want to get all 4 of those little pillars in the corner of your little box sign there, so you'll see I'm pushing them with my hands really quick. You do have some time before the glue, solidifies, but you do want to make sure it's in all 4 corners. And again, because this is a shiny surface, I took it outside and gave it a coat of spray paint with primer, so it's ready to go for the next process. I really loved that texture. I thought it was so unusual. I thought about spray painting it black and making the bottom gold, but we ended up doing this instead. Now here's that water-based acrylic stain. It's down below in my description box if you're interested, but I'm going to take that and just give it a light coat everywhere to make this a faux wood. And again, you can choose whatever colors are part of your decor scheme. It's just that couple, I did get to talk to them, and I told them they've actually already seen the pictures. They love everything I made. So, but they kind of gave me an idea about what they wanted and where they didn't want color, where they did want color, and what was missing in their home. So I tried to accommodate as much as I could, and they're really happy. So we're going to make this look like a faux wood. It ends up coming up so classy looking. So I'm just going to paint this entire thing wood, and then you'll see I take the bottom, those little separate pieces, I'm leaving those untouched for now. So I'm kind of envisioning those little stools that have the black little bottoms that are painted, where it looks like somebody taped it off, and the little legs have the black part. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I'm trying to pick up that same modern energy because it gives the look and the feel that this couple really likes in their home. So this is my inspiration pieces online. You can see one in the bottom left-hand corner there too. And I realized that's a print, and I thought that this would make a really high-end decor. So I took that metal flower from the Dollar Tree. I broke the flower off. You just bend it back and forth, and I spray painted it white. And then I'm taking a Dollar Tree frame. And this is a really simple DIY, and I do love that part about modern decor. You can add some really pretty accent pieces, and they're not really complicated. Anyone can do them. That's some more black poster board that I'm putting in the frame, and I'm just going to take and glue that white flower down in the middle. But after I glue it, I feel like it's a little too simple, and I realized that photo we saw of the black and white flower at the beginning, my inspiration piece, a lot of that was lighting and really good photography, but in real life those things look a little bit too plain, I think, unless you have it in the right setting, and then it would look good. But I didn't know where they were going to put this, so I went ahead and took some gray paint and I painted the center. And then you'll see me take a black Sharpie permanent marker in the color gray. It's a really light gray, and I found that at Walmart. It's in a set of unusual colors. You'll just kind of have to look for it. There's a bunch of, like, they have galactic colors. They have all these different colors now. Sharpie pens, they are so much fun. But I decided it did need some dimension and some character. It just couldn't be a plain white flower. So I take my gray marker and I just trace the edges of all the petals and the lines and try to give it some different dimension. And then I take some hot glue and glue it down. And standing back, I still think it's just missing something. I mean, you can stop there if you want, but I felt like it was a little too small. I think if it had been bigger, I would have stopped there, but I decided to add a little stem, a very simple modern stem, just in simple white with my white chalk pen, just to kind of give this guy a little bit of character and a little bit of a base. This is one of those DIYs that look really expensive only in person because the flower's metal, and you can tell that it's metal and it's 3D, so it just gives off a really high-end appearance. But I think it came up pretty in its simplicity. You're going to need oatmeal containers, and I just cut it down again, and I'm painting it with the Kilz primer, K-I-L-Z. It's a water-based primer, and this time I'm going to try the antiquing wax. That's the one I use. It's down below in my description box if you're interested. And as you can see, the wax doesn't quite have the same glide factor that the water-based acrylic stain does. Now, I think if you add water, you could get it to glide more, but because this was cardboard, I was kind of worried about the extra moisture. So rather than fight City Hall, I just went with it. And I thought, you know what? Natural wood has a lot of texture. When you go into high-end home decor stores, you see all kinds of design and texture on the decor pieces. It adds beauty. So I decided to go with the same exact philosophy, and here I'm taking my brush and I'm just tapping it along the bottom. That's going to be the bottom, and I'm making those little, I don't know what to call them, little designs. I just kind of tap my brush in those little lines, and it creates, you can see it right there, just a beautiful texture and dimension on this piece. And then I wanted to give the top some nice finishing touches. I was inspired by things I've seen online in the past. When you look up modern decor, when I was doing the modern decor videos and some of the boho videos, these are things that come up. They look very similar, and you can make it totally for free out of an oatmeal container. Well, you need your skewers from the Dollar Tree, and it's super simple. I just glued the skewers around, measured, made sure they're even so it stands nice and even. I'm sanding the top, and I'm going to put a little greenery in the top, but it was amazing to me how nice and expensive this looked when I was all done. So here's my inspiration piece. I see these all over, but I wanted to mix it with that look. This is like, when you look it up, it's called circle wall art. So I took some black yarn and these two Dollar Tree hoops, and the center of that is a little safety seal from a salad dressing cap. You can use whatever round circle you want. And of course you'll need the gold spray paint, because I took these hoops outside and I spray painted them gold. In real life they're kind of a dark green, which doesn't really go very well. And the hoops come in a set of 3. I had 2 sets, so I used the same size hoop. One of them I cut those little circular pieces off that I tied the yarn on either side, and one I left it on because I wanted to thread it through, as you could see, and then use that to have a straight piece of yarn across. And now I'm taking that safety seal and I'm just wrapping it up with the black yarn. Next, I'm just going to loop the yarn in this manner, where I put it underneath, and then on top, and then I come from underneath and I pull the other 2 pieces through. There are tons of YouTube videos with this macrame knot. I don't know, I can't remember what it's called. I used to know what it was called, but you can find so many videos if you need that in more detail. You just put the loop on top, push those 2 strings underneath through that loop and pull it through, and it puts a nice little tie on. And if this piece here is going to be a very delicate, simple piece, because again, their house is very delicate. It's not quite minimalist, but it's very close, and everything is very clean. White couch, black throws, a wood table, little accents of wood here and there, and some pops of color. So this I'm making for the end of her hallway, so I couldn't make it really big. And now you see me just securing the end knots there. I'm not actually gluing, I'm just pressing my hot glue down on the polyester yarn, and it's melting itself into each other. Nice little trick there, so you don't have glue all over your yarn. Just melt the knots. It works great. And now you can see I've done the same thing in the opposite direction, but I want it to be kind of like a sunburst, and I'm gluing this. Now I will be honest and tell you guys, I did have to go back and put super glue on the back of that, and I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had done, you know, always wiser in hindsight, but I wish I had done the knot on the top and then glued that on the inner circle that I wrapped and hit it on the back side. But it was working fine and it's staying together. It's just, I think that would have been a better way to do it. And I'm showing you there, I melted it again. I'm showing you up close how clean that is. It's just a great way to make sure those yarn threads do not come off. So again, I cut that other one a little bit too short, but oh well, it's working. And here I'm just taking and wrapping it. No specific, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to that. You guys just do it wherever you feel like it looks good. This is where I ended up. It's kind of just a nice kind of, I guess it's like an abstract design there. And again, I'm just gonna, oh, and I'm showing you here, I did get a little hot glue showing through on that one knot, and if that happens to you, just take a permanent marker and cover it up. No big deal, especially if you're using black. It's perfect. You can just cover it up, no one will see it. And here I'm gluing it down, and again, it came apart the next day. It stayed for hours and then it came apart, so I did end up having to take super glue the next day and leave it overnight and let it really cure. So don't do the hot glue, you guys. Do super glue, because when you want to move these around, they're very fragile. If you do hot glue, it'll just come off. Just a little bit of embellishment. So I just put 3 beads on the little center hoop, and then I can't leave this guy out. He has to have at least one, and I went for the center on him. And I think these came up a perfect modern wall art piece. So everywhere I looked butterflies seem to keep coming up. They want over $100 for this. So rather than throwing away the stem of the flower that I removed, I decided to keep it and make something pretty. And you're going to need some of those little wavy hors d'oeuvre plastic dishes again, a round wooden plaque from the Dollar Tree, and I'm showing you here that the Dollar Tree does sell butterflies. I used some butterflies that I had that I got from Michael's. It was a floral piece, actually. It was like a butterfly bush or something, and then they had butterflies all in between, which I cut off because I just wanted the leaves in my home for decor. But as you saw, I bent that. It was super simple, and the top was already curved from where I had been bending it back and forth to try to get the flower off. So it was like the perfect premise and beginning for a butterfly sculpture. So I start off with putting Kilz primer on this. That's K-I-L-Z. It's a water-based primer, and it does require 2 coats. I dry thoroughly in between. I didn't spray paint this one because it was getting dark outside and I knew I wouldn't be able to see if I had done full enough coverage, so I stayed indoors and just did the paint on primer. And now I'm using my antique wax, and I'm going to create, you know, wood, a faux wood here for the leaves. Using a little bit of spackling, I fill in the hole on those Dollar Tree plaques because they do have a hole. And then I'm going to take my antique wax, swirl a little bit on, and then take a baby wipe just to rub it in and kind of make it spread and glide a little bit better. I do end up making this a lot darker, but this is my first coat. And there's my butterflies, you guys. I just dumped them out. I just go about, and this is definitely a work of art when you guys do this. It would look pretty with big butterflies, small butterflies. It really doesn't matter. And you put them wherever you feel like they look pretty. Just have fun with it. That's what I did. And I got lucky because these were part of a flower stem. They actually have little holes on the bottom. So I actually stuck that one butterfly on top of the wire there. So he's sitting on top. I don't know if you can see that on the shorter wire. But again, I'm melting the plastic, and this time I'm doing a line, and I'm pushing this puppy down inside below while the plastic cools and hardens around it. And I'm hoping, and it works perfect, but I tell you, I wasn't sure at first if this was going to work because this is a lot heavier than the sticks, but look at that, you guys. It works perfect. That's what it looks like up close and personal when you do this method. You're just melting the plastic to make it almost like a really strong gooey hot glue that will harden around your craft piece. So it works perfect as a stand, and I knew I couldn't do that with the wood. You know, I was kind of going over the wood thinking I'm gonna have to put a groove in it, I'm gonna have to do it, and I thought, no, let's just use one of those plastic pieces again, and it worked perfect. I put it down on top of the circle, traced it with a pencil so I know exactly where to put my Fix All glue. That's also by Super Glue. I get it at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just, you know, outlining it there, plenty of glue. And I'm going to stick this down on top, and then you can see rocks on either side that I collected from the beach last year. I use those as weights, and I put it down on top, and then I just clean my edges off with a Kleenex. I take a craft stick, wipe, I use the tissue and wipe. I just kind of try and get off as much glue as possible, and then I go ahead and I put that weight on the other side, another rock, to hold it down while I continue to add some butterflies here and there and make little adjustments just so that, you know, you just get it where it's aesthetically pleasing and however you're wanting it to look. Lastly, I wasn't 100% sure it would stay, and I didn't want them to have any problems with this tipping over down the road, so I took some good old-fashioned super glue and went over the top where I had pushed the bottom in, put a bunch of it there, and then left it overnight with the 2 rocks on top. And this is the next morning. It's all dry, and as you can see, it's standing strong. You can even lift it from that and be kind of rough with it. I mean, I wouldn't throw it against the wall or anything, but it's standing just fine. And I put some more primer on top of that plastic because I am going to have to add some more of my antique wax to get it to match. That's what I'm doing now. And then I do end up going darker because I think it looks better darker when you're in person. there's just some light areas a little bit from where the glue is left with the seam, and so it's just kind of better to make the whole thing darker. Now, if you wanted more of a dupe of the original piece, you would take a gold-plated spray, which I did have on hand, but the couple communicated to me that they actually wanted this left the way it was for a pop of color. They really loved it, so I left it alone, and this is what we ended up with. So when you Google high-end modern home decor, you get images like this. See the shapes and the different kind of spheres. And I saw this and I thought, gosh, that is like, and it's like a 3-tier tray decor, but for modern decor. So when I was in the Dollar Tree, I saw these and I thought, oh my gosh, those are perfect. I know exactly what I'm going to do with this. So you take some super glue gel, you just glue that sphere on top of, it's like in a toy section, it's a game. And then you glue it on top of the little, what I believe is a massager. And that's it. You balance this little sphere between 2 jars. That's what I did. It dried overnight. Took it outside, gave it a coat of gold spray paint. I actually used the other spray paint that is that plated gold to mist it as well. You'll see it, you know, in the final reveal. It's super shiny, but it is a very beautiful little decoration piece. For this DIY, I'm using an oatmeal container, some dowels from the Dollar Tree, and this basket I found at the Dollar Tree as well, but you can use any basket. And for this oatmeal container, I thought it would be easy to put it in this little kit here with the saw and cut it. I thought it was a brilliant idea, but you're going to see why in a minute it wasn't. And as I go here and I make more DIYs, I get better and better at showing you the best way to cut the container. So you can see what happened there. It was really hairy and frayed, and I had to do sanding and, you know, trimming, and it was just kind of a pain. So the second one, I decided to use my little craft knife, and the little blade keeps coming out, so I get fed up with that, and I use my scissors, which does work fine, but I have other ways of doing it further on in the video, but if you only have scissors, that will work just fine. Just make sure you cut nice and straight. And then I'm removing the top of the Dollar Tree basket, and these little reed pieces come out so easy. I bought about 6 of these baskets when I saw them at Dollar Tree. I knew right away when I saw them, because they've got really high-end ones now in that natural wood, and some are stained, that they are perfect for taking apart and making DIYs with. They're kind of like a ribbon. You know, if you get that faux leather ribbon at the Dollar Tree, this is right up there. It just takes your crafts from looking inexpensive, and it really brings them up to a nice high-end look. So I'm going to take this reed now, and I'm using hot wood glue. Now, the containers are cardboard, which is wood fiber, and I'm gluing wood, but throughout the entire video, I do choose to stay with the hot wood glue. I just found that it is exceptional as far as holding things together, and I didn't want any of this to come apart. It's a much stronger glue. And so I'm just going to go ahead and cover both of these containers with the basket reed. Now here I'm showing you something really cool with these reeds. When you need to custom fit the very top, because maybe you want it a little shorter, actually it could go over the top, it wasn't that important, but I wanted to show you that because it's an awesome option. They split and peel really easy, so you can get nice straight custom fits. Now this is just my thing. I wanted to finish the back where the seam was. You don't have to do that. I think it added a little bit of character and charm, but you certainly can just leave the seam there if you want to. And now I'm deciding to go ahead and paint the inside black. I probably should have done that first, but as always, I decided when it's done, I thought, no, this is looking really, really classy, and it needs to be painted black inside. I mean, you could cover it with material, with paper inside, whatever you want. I chose black latex paint. It has primer in it. It's a nice quality paint. And as you saw, I'm using my water-based stain. I love that stuff. If you're interested, it's down below in my description box. There's a link there, but no odor, super slippery and slidey. It's got a great glide factor, and it has a beautiful stain, and it does come in different colors. So now I'm just gluing the dowels that I also stained on either side. I did measure before I do this, so take your time. You want them nice and even, and voila, you have this awesome double layer towering storage container planter. You could use this for so many things, and it looks so high-end in person. I love this. And here's another one. I'm cutting it down, and now I'm using latex paint with primer to paint the top of this. The oatmeal containers are shiny on the surface, so I don't recommend acrylic paint. You're going to need something stronger than acrylic paint. It'll chip off. And I'm taking these little Dollar Tree cubes, and I'm just going to glue them around in a design on these. This is going to be a planter. I've seen a lot of this online in the modern decor, so that was my inspiration. I thought it would be really fun to show you how to do this for pennies on the dollar, and it comes up looking really, really nice. And of course, I change my mind as I go. I'm going to go ahead and take some of the towering blocks and glue 2 together, and I do a set of 4 of those because I am going to give this little guy legs. And then I'm going to take my water-based stain, and I'm going to go ahead and stain the legs. And after I stain the legs, I realize I like the whole thing stained, so I go and stain all the little wooden cubes as well. And because it's black, it wasn't a tragic thing that I did it that way, because even if I make a little mistake, you're not going to see it. But I was careful, and it just looks really striking against the black, that color brown. I just think it looks so, so pretty. And again, turn it upside down and glue my little legs on to make sure they're even and not lopsided. And also, not all the towering blocks are the same size, so make sure you check that before you glue them together, because you don't want them to be, wobbly. You don't want the legs to be wobbly. And I put some greenery in it, and that's it. It came up super cute. Another great deal on the clearance aisle at Hobby Lobby, $1.59. I think Michael's has clearance like this too, so does Walmart. You just have to keep your eye open. But I decided that this one would make a perfect modern tray. Like, I didn't want to touch that image at all, because that's just your classic little red door. It's very clean and crisp, and I have friends, for those of you that watch my channel, I have friends, a couple of friends that absolutely love modern decor, and so when I have a chance to make them something for their home, I do. So I go ahead and take the Dollar Tree towering blocks. I glue 2 of them together, because you do need to put them on top of each other, otherwise you won't see the little legs at the bottom to make this a tray, because it's a perfect serving tray. I actually think this kind of looks French too. It's cute, like modern French, I'm not sure. So all this needs is just 2 coats of Mod Podge. That's it. If you have the dishwasher safe Mod Podge, that would probably be even better, although regular Mod Podge, once it's fully cured, does work well to, against water damage. So, just in case I want to put liquids on this. So I just take the little legs, I'm gluing it on the bottom of the tray, and that's it. I just thought this made such a cute high-end tray. That's how it looks from the side, and it's perfect. My son actually likes this too. I don't know, we might end up keeping it, but we're all done. And this was a super good deal at 89 cents. And it had that little chip in the right hand corner there. That was probably why it was on clearance, and no big deal. I just took a little bit of the Dollar Tree spackling and filled it in. Now this is going to be for my modern friends that love modern decor, but I knew that this wasn't in their color scheme. They kind of gravitate towards black and gold and silver and bronze. So I took the sign after I filled it in, removed the sticker, painted it black, super easy to do, went over the white words with a black permanent marker the best I could, and then I took some of the silver iridescent paint, I think it's called sterling silver by Folk Art. It's for making like a galvanized type look, and that's it. So while surfing around on Anthropology, I saw those vases to the right and these right here, and I thought those would be fun to dupe, and I know they're really on trend. I saw them on Instagram post, and so I'm using these plastic cups. I'm showing you which ones I chose, and also these little leprechaun they come out at St. Patrick's Day at the Dollar Tree. They're little cauldrons. The center of the tape, a small 4-ounce can of chilies, whatever you can use for a 4-ounce can, that's fine, but just use your imagination. You're looking for different shapes. And then I do take the rocks that I gathered at the beach last summer. I have a ton of them, and I use them as weights in each one of these vases to hold them down, because the plastic from the Dollar Tree is not very heavy, you know, so these will tip over. So I'm not going to be able to show you how I glued every single vase together, because what I realized when I was doing this is that they're see-through and it's just kind of hard to see which vase I'm doing and where I'm doing it. But I will tell you that I did use my super glue for the thin edges, like where the little ridges would meet, where the seams are, where it's really delicate and thin, the edge. I used super glue, wiped it off, you saw me do it, and then where it was like the bottom of the plastic container, I used low heat hot glue because I knew it wouldn't melt, and I also had a bigger, wider surface to work with, because you know hot glue can get a little goopy and I didn't want that to show. And now I'm using the can, which I also used hot glue for. It's pretty much just when I try to put the two tops together of the cups where the rim is really thin that I had to use a super glue because it was just too hard. But these were actually very fun to make. You just pile on different cups. I'm using the tape as a base. If you don't have tape, there are these cylinder little box containers that they sell at the Dollar Tree in the box section, and you can cut those to be the same width as this. You can also use, you know, if you were really desperate, you could probably pile up two like tuna can shapes. I use chicken breast for that because the tuna, if you're going to do that, make sure you spray it with bleach. You know, wash it really good, spray it with bleach, and leave it out in the sun to dry, and then you won't have any odor. But that would work, I think. And then here I'm going to remove the handles on these little leprechaun cauldrons, I guess. They're little lucky, I feel like saying Lucky Charms, but I think this is like the pot of gold. And I'm just going to cut them off with my wire cutters, and I am going to take some sandpaper and just sand the edges where those, you know, where I cut that, and even on the edge there's a little design, and I just rough it up a little bit, but I actually like that design. And for what I have in mind for these, I know that that's not really going to show, so I'm not too worried about it, and even if it did, it would just add to the look. So again, not worried about it at all. And you also could cut the rim off of these if you wanted, like the top little edge there, but I liked it, so I left it alone, and I just roughed up the surfaces a little bit to make sure that they stick together, and I used hot glue to stick these together, and it worked just fine. This is a homemade cream color paint I made using antique white from Apple Barrel Paint and some white acrylic paint and mixing it, but you can use any cream color you want. I'm using baking soda, a little bit of sand. You can also skip the sand if you want and just add a little bit more baking soda. That will also create a beautiful texture. And of course, I'm going to no, I'm going to texture these little guys up because they are plastic, they are fake. So in order to bring them around and make them look expensive and legitimate when they're sitting on a shelf, they can't just be spray painted. So I did take them outside and I spray painted them with the white paint with primer so everything would stick. But I am taking my acrylic paint with all this texture in it, and I'm going to go ahead and cover all of these, and it comes up so beautiful. And this is what we end up with. Now don't worry, I'm going to show you what those hard to identify pieces are so you can take a screenshot right now and recreate it. But the 3-ounce can be found with canned Spam. Mine was a cat food can. 4-ounce can with green chilies, and of course the tape roll. But I think these came up absolutely stunning. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. And as always, until the next video, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.